Okay, we're on awareness now. We've negated the subtle the gross body. We've just finished the not. What is the not self section? And now we've discovered that it's not the gross, the subtle, the causal body, and it's not Maya. It's not ignorance. We had quite a lot of talk about Maya. One point about Maya that I made, and I need to make it again. When you realize yourself, avidya goes, but Maya stays. In other words, the world appears. That's Ishwara Srishti. That's the creation of Ishwara. That will remain. But your own ignorance will disappear. And you'll no longer what? So you don't expect when you get enlightened that suddenly the whole world's going to go poof and you're just going to be walking around in the great luminous void, the great emptiness. The world is going to be here, everything's going to function exactly the same. It's just that your avidya, your personal ignorance, will be removed by this teaching. That's all. That's all. Maya stays, but avidya goes. When you assimilate the meaning of these teachings. Okay, so we're now, so the not self, we're taking care of, now we're talking about the self. We're on the topic of the self. I'll recapitulate slightly and then we'll move on. Now I will teach the nature of the limitless self, knowing which one is freed from bondage and attains oneness with everything. Liberation is just the absence of ignorance. But what's the gain? So what? I lose ignorance, but what do I gain? Oneness with everything. I discover that what? I am non-separate from everything. And what does that do? That's great. That solves all my problems. Because what? I see you as me. And I won't injure you, I won't lie to you, I won't cheat you, I won't steal from you. I will only treat you with the greatest love and respect. Why? Because you're me. That's what. I expect to be treated with love and respect because I love myself. I expect you to, and I'll treat you that way too when I see that you're me. When I think that you're something other than me, that's where the problem comes in. If my vision, if my knowledge is that I am the experiencing entity, then you're going to be something other than me. I'm going to have my fears and desires, and I'm going to have a problem with you. All of our problems come from this notion that we're separate from, distinct from others. And in fact, non-duality means there are no others. There's apparent others. Awareness is self-existent. It's a light bulb that never turned on. It was shining. It always shines. It was never turned on. It can't be turned off. It's not connected to a mains. It generates a light within itself without effort. And we said that's just your existence. That's why he says awareness is self-existent. If you look at, does anybody doubt that they exist? No. Good. Good. It's clear. We don't have to teach you that you're the self. It's clear that you exist. If you know that you exist, then you're the self. It's just that the knowledge of what existence is not clear to you. The intellect is unclear about what existence, what I am, existence means what I am, is unclear. So we need the teachings to get clear about that. So awareness is self-existent. Now what does that mean? You don't need anything, any experience to validate you. Anything that happens doesn't validate or invalidate you. It doesn't make you exist. It doesn't bring you into existence as a good person or a bad person. Nothing that happens is a statement about you at all. You exist in yourself on your own without having to worry about anything that happens at all. And that existence is whole, purnaha, it's full, it's complete. And therefore what? It's free of desires and fears. So knowing your existence means what? Your fears and desires disappear. Those fears and desires are born of the belief that what? I exist separately or differently or other than the objects that are appearing in me. And where do you see this existence? Where do you see yourself? In the I thought. Does anybody doesn't have an I thought? That I thought is just a linga, a sign of your existence. If you contemplate on the I, you'll find yourself. That's where you see it. It's always this. It's distinct from the five sheaths. We said this, and witness of the three states of experience. We went through this teaching, the three states of experience, day before yesterday, and everybody's mouth was like, wasn't it? You couldn't really think. It was hard to think past that, wasn't it? The who am I gets pretty clear when you hear that teaching. Because you can no longer take yourself to be the experiencing entity. This waker, this waking state entity, what happens to him when he goes to sleep? Where does he go? If this is me, I've got to be real. And I'm real, I've got to exist all the time, don't I? Real means what? You're always existent. Existent always is. It's always present. It's always here. So if I'm real, then why am I not here? Why am I not here in sleep? I'm not here in sleep as a waking state entity. I'm here in sleep as awareness. I'm experiencing my own self as limitless and bliss as what? In deep sleep. Unfortunately, I'm called pranya when I'm experiencing myself here. And what does that mean? Almost enlightened. You're almost enlightened as the pranya, as the sleep state entity. You're almost enlightened. What? What's missing? Knowledge. You don't know who you are here. You're experiencing yourself. This is in the realm of experience. All these three states are realm of experience. You're experiencing yourself here, but you don't know who you are. So when you wake up over here or you start dreaming, you think you're the limited identity again. See? You can't get knowledge here because there's no intellect here to get knowledge. So when you transform into one of these two entities, the knowledge hasn't taken place, so you're still dumb as a loaf of bread when you come back here. Isn't it? But how are those, in every one of these, in all three of these states, there's some factor, and it's not, remember we said this, it's not a fourth state. There is no fourth state. The Upanishad does not call Turiya a state. It calls it the fourth, and it means a fourth factor. There is a fourth factor in addition to these three states. That factor is the awareness, right, that makes these states possible. Awareness, under the spell of Maya, manifests an experiencing entity and three states of experience. That experience, waking state entity, experiences the world of objects, of gross objects and subtle objects. In the dream state, it transforms itself to a dream state. It looks inward and looks at its vasanas, experiences only subtle objects. And then it transforms itself into what? A deep sleeper, and experiences itself as limitlessness and bliss, minus the knowledge. So the self is experiencing itself, apparently, and here, Josh, this is where this is a trick. because the self isn't really an experiencer. Remember, I'm talking like the self is an experiencer, but the self really isn't an experiencer. See these paradoxes? You can really get yourself hung up on a paradox. That's why you need a teaching and a teacher. Because these paradoxes are apparent, they're not real. But if you don't have them unfolded properly, then there'll be real paradoxes for you, and you'll get, what? Confused. So, this self is what? The witness of these three states. And it doesn't change. The states change. The states change, I don't change. Isn't that true? I mean, just look at your own experience. Isn't that true? Yeah, it's true. Now I'm awake. Now I'm sleeping. Now I'm dreaming. Has the I changed? No. The I hasn't changed at all. The experiencing entity has changed, and the experiences that the experiencing entities have changed, but the I remains the same. This is why you know. You slept, you woke, you dreamt. Those are objects appearing in you. Sleeping, waking, and dreaming are objects appearing in you, in awareness. And an object, as we said, very clear, the subject cannot be the object. The object can be the subject, but the subject can never be the object. This is the essence of moksha. Duality doesn't mean the subject and the object are the same. People think non-duality doesn't mean the subject and the object are the same. Sorry. People say the subject and the object are the same, and that's what non-duality means. No, the subject and the object are not the same. The subject, the self, is what? Always free of the objects, just like gold is free of the ring. But the ring is not free of the gold, is it? The wave is what? Not free of the ocean, but the ocean's free of the wave, isn't it? Because you could have an ocean that has no waves. So the wave depends upon the ocean, but the ocean does not depend upon the wave. So this relationship between satya, the awareness, and the objects appearing in it called mithya, the apparent reality, that relationship needs to be clear. You have to understand that. That's the essence of this teaching. Now we're getting on to new verse. As the I, awareness knows the presence and the absence of the mind. Okay, this is he's taking a piss here out of the yogis who believe in nirvikalpa samadhi, and the people that think that deep sleep is enlightenment. In deep sleep, there's no mind, is there? The mind's gone. The vasanas that produce the subtle body have been withdrawn into the causal body. So the vasana that's causing the subtle body to project, that's Ishwara's vasana, has been withdrawn into the causal body, so there's no subtle body, so there's no mind. In other words, there's no thoughts. And in nirvikalpa samadhi, that's a samadhi that people experience. You don't experience it, you have to stop existing to experience it. But there's no mind operating. It says, the self-awareness knows the presence and the absence of the mind. So if the mind is there, I'm here prior to the mind. And if the mind's not here, am I not here? No! You see? Yeah. It's very simple. If the mind's not here, am I not here? If you say yes, okay, if you say yes, how do you know that you're not here? How do you know? Because you're here, that's how you know. There's no non-existence for you. The idea in yoga is that you're a problem, and you want to stop being a problem, so you get to this samadhi where you don't exist, and then what? Your problem goes away. The problem with the no mind teaching is that what? Even if you do get in a state of no mind, if a fly lights on your nose, you're back into your mind again. Your senses are activated and suddenly you're there experiencing a fly in your nose. What good is that? See, to say that I have no mind, you need a means for that knowledge, don't you? Oh, I wasn't there. That's what passes for enlightenment nowadays. I'm not really here. Oh, he's so not here. She's so not there. You know that one? Haven't you heard that? It's the silliest thing. It's so dumb. It's so incredibly dumb. And they all make such a big fuss about it. They all write. And then I had this experience, and I realized I wasn't here. Oh, wow. Cool. Hey, you have to be here to realize you're not here. So who are we talking about? Who are we talking? When you say you're not here, you're just talking about the waker, the wanker. That waker's a wanker. If it says I'm not, if it's claiming that being not here is enlightenment, because being not here is not enlightenment. If being not here was enlightenment, then we're all enlightened. Why? Because who hasn't gone to sleep? But when you wake up, you're still dumb as you were when you went to sleep. So what good does it do to be not here? Think about it. It doesn't do you any good. So being not here is bogus teaching. There's never a moment when you are not here. Ever. So pack it in, give it up. Stop trying to non-exist. Stop trying to get rid of yourself and your problems. If you got tons of problems, what? Okay, good. I have tons of problems. But what does that mean? I don't have a problem. Why? Because I know that I have tons of problems. If you know that you have tons of problems, do you have tons of problems? No, you don't. The knower doesn't have any problems. The knower, awareness, the witness, has no problems. Ignorance makes the awareness think that the problems belong to awareness. But the problems don't belong to you. The problems belong to ignorance. So don't blame yourself for these problems. Blame Ishwara, blame ignorance, blame Maya. You say, I have a problem, then we say, do you know you have a problem? Yes, I know I have a problem. Then do you have a problem? No. Why? Because the problem's an object, and what? I'm the subject, and the subject is never the object. This is not complicated logic. You're not, just look and see, isn't that true? My hand is here, my hand is me, but minus my hand, do I cease to exist? No. I'm just me without a hand. That's all. Problem has the same degree of reality as my hand. Remove the problem, I'm still here. Add the problem, I'm still here. I have a rat problem. And when the rat, that means I'm here to have a rat problem, and when I don't have a rat problem, I'm here to have no rat problem. Think about it. So, awareness knows the presence and absence of the mind and its thoughts in the waking, dream, and deep sleep states of experience. Awareness sees itself by itself but no one sees awareness. Okay, here we are. Knowledge and experience again. I want to see awareness, sir. I want to smell awareness, taste awareness, touch awareness, experience awareness. Oh, no one experiences awareness. Sees means experience, knows. No one, meaning jiva, no jiva knows awareness. Sees awareness. Experiences awareness. Awareness experiences awareness. That's what you're experiencing now. You're experiencing awareness. Your awareness experiencing awareness. That's all. That's all that's happening anywhere. But owing to Maya, owing to a lack of aviveka, and aviveka means a lack of discrimination, I think that I'm not experiencing myself when I'm experiencing you. You are me. Where, let's go back to the location of objects teaching. You know, where is the book? Is it in my hand or is it in my mind? It's in my hand if you're your body, but it's in my mind if you're what? Awareness. And where is your mind? Is that in you or is that somewhere else? It's in me, isn't it? My mind is in me. If the book is in my mind and my mind is in me, how far is my mind from me? How far away is it?
Zero.
Huh?
Zero.
Zero. No separation between what? So is there a difference between me and the book? Is there a separation between me and the book? No, there's no separation between me and the book. There's an apparent separation when I look at myself from the body's point of view. You're right. If you're the body, then this is over here. If you're the body, this book is over here. But let me ask you this. Isn't your body over there? Isn't your body somewhere? Isn't that body an object to you? So if the body's an object to you, is this an object to you? Yes, it's an object to the body, but is it an object to you? No, it's an object what? Let's put it this way. Both your body and the objects appearing in your body that your body knows are what? Objects to you. Now, can they be you? No. Therefore, this book cannot be over here. Can it? Can't be. Only when I misunderstand myself to be the body. And I can't do that. Why not? Because the body's an object. So the body's not me, is it? So when you start using, this is inquiry. Inquiry is the application of knowledge. It's not asking questions. It's questioning what? What I think and feel, and applying the knowledge of non-duality to the perception of objects. In this case, to the perception of experience. In this case, to the perception of what? Physical objects. So when I'm experiencing you or you're experiencing me, you're just experiencing the self, because the experience takes place in you. And just like the web of a spider is made out of the spider self and shaped by the intelligence of the spider, whatever you experience, right, is made out of your own consciousness and shaped by your own intelligence. By your vasanas, let's put it that way. In other words, there is no specific experience here, but it becomes a specific experience when what? Awareness identifies with the vasanas. That's called jiva shristihi. It's the creation of the individual, or the jiva. It's a projection on awareness. Ishvara Srishti is what? Just all the objects appearing, operating what? They're projected by macrocosmic awareness on the screen of itself, and that within that projection, these little jivas, they have their own little bits of ignorance, and they project their own world there, and they shape their world according to their past history, according to their vasanas. And it's that, your own projection, that needs to be what? Examined and separated from Ishvara's projection. When you understand the relationship between your projection and Ishvara's projection, then you see that all the projections are Ishvara's projections, and you stop projecting. And you merge with Ishvara. That's why you get oneness with everything. And therefore, operating here is not a problem. It's only operating here is a problem when what? I think I'm separate from the objects appearing in me. It illumines the mind, but the mind does not illumine it. Same idea. Awareness shines as the eye in the three states of experience, and witnesses the mind revealing the formless elements, air and space, and the elements of form, fire, water, and earth. It does not change. Awareness does not change. We said a couple of times so far, when an experience appears, do you appear? No. You're there prior to the appearance of an experience. As the experience continues, subsists, it's called Vishnu, as it's sustained, as that experience is sustained, do you what? Change? No. As the experience disappears and dissolves and a new experience comes up, do you disappear or dissolve with the experience? No. Means what? Experience changes, but I don't change. All I have to do is what? Identify that part of myself that doesn't change as myself. That part of yourself that doesn't change is with you. Know everybody knows that part. Don't you? Is there anybody that doesn't know that part of themselves that doesn't change? No, there's nobody. That part of yourself that doesn't change is called yourself. And when you identify with that, then you're free. When you identify with the experiencing entity and the experiences, then you're not free. Because then Ishvara is in charge of your experience. And you having desires and fears that are contrary to Ishvara's desires and fears, you're going to suffer and enjoy, depending upon the nature of your desires and fears, which are based upon your ignorance of your nature as awareness. 39. Oh my God. Oh, you were all right. We'll do a little more. And we'll have a break. What is bondage? Here's where the problem comes in. Student asks, these are the questions. What is bondage? See, there's no bondage for a dog, for a cow, or a dog, or a cat. There's no bondage. There's no bondage for a tree. They don't think they're bound. They don't think they're free because they don't know what freedom is. Only human beings have an intellect, and they think they're bound. It's an erroneous notion. They're not bound, but they think they're bound. This is why you can get set free, because you're already free. If you're actually bound, then you've got a real problem. Then there's a whole lot of things you're going to have to do to get unbound. But you're not actually bound. You're not actually suffering and tied down here to these objects. You just believe that you are. So he says, well, and this is the definition of bondage. The I in the anatma, anatma, the I in the anatma means what? The subtle body, the doer. That reflected awareness, that person that I think I am, erroneously thinks it's a person. Some people get excited and irritated when I try to point out that you're not the person. Somebody the other day came to me, when we did the 5 sheaths. They were really agitated because they believed that you had to get rid of these 5 sheaths and that there was something wrong with these 5 sheaths. It means experience. And that this was really a life-destroying philosophy, that this was a nihilistic philosophy, that you have to get rid of all these. No, you don't. You get to live exactly as you lived before, minus the belief that those things are you. That's all. So nothing has to change. You don't have to leave your wife and kids to get enlightened. You don't have to quit your job to get enlightened. You don't have to change your behavior, your habits, or anything at all to get enlightened. You're going to just be the same as before. You're just not going to take that person and those things to be real. Don't get frightened. That's why people hold back. Usually the people that realize through this, and there's been several cases in my experience in the last few years, they have this notion, right? They're all ready to pop. They're all ready to finish. They know everything. They've got everything squared away, but they're afraid that they're going to have to be different when they're enlightened. They're afraid they're going to have to quit doing what they're doing and leave their life and da-di-da and all that sort of thing. And they're going to have to teach or be spiritual or save the world or, and all of that. And they don't want to because they got good lives anyway. Hey, you get to keep your life as it is. You just don't believe that it's real, that's all. It's apparently real because we're living in an apparent reality here, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's fine. It's good to live here. This is a beautiful life to live in. Just don't take it to be real. Well, this is a cool place. And it's cool because it's not real. Huh? Think of it. Then you don't cling on to it, do you? It's the hanging on to it that's making it a problem. Then it just flows with unspeakable ease. Huh? You don't hang on to the bad stuff. You don't hang on to the good stuff. When I had the rat problem yesterday, I thought it was a real problem at first. And then I realized, hey, it's just a rat thought in my mind. And as soon as I released the rat thought, the problem disappeared. And the rat just became, just me. And now we're just in this dance with this rat, that's all. And it's cool. It's okay. And I'll get the little bastard. I'll kill him. It may take a few sleepless nights. The landlady came in with a special kind of a thing from the housing board. It's a rat catcher. It's like a book, and it has really cartoon rats on the front. And you open it up. It's really pretty. I'm going to go get one just for fun. It's only 100 rupees. And it's got this 2 little things, and then it's got this sticky stuff in there. So you put the food in these little places, and the rat runs in to get the food, and then his feet get stuck in there. And he can't get out. It's like crazy glue. You know when you glue your, It's really cool, and it's beautifully done. So we got a rat trap, where he's supposed to go in and fall in, and then, because he goes to the cheese, and then the door pops back. Then we got this thing, this little book with the sticky things, to catch the rat. We'll get him, and I got a stick, So when I see him, and I've got all my plans now how to get this rat, it's become a nice game. It's no longer a rat problem. I no longer have a problem. It's just a game that I got to play here. And it's funny.
Arjuna is going into battle.
Yeah, going into battle. Arjuna's fighting the good fight. So this I erroneously thinks it's a person. What do you mean? Is there anybody that thinks they're a person here? Thank God you don't. But in case you did think you're a person, what does that mean to say I'm a person? What does that mean? Okay, what does it mean to say I'm an American? Huh? Yeah, oh, the Europeans. Okay, to say I'm a European, or I'm a whatever. If you say I'm an American, what does that mean? It means if you interview 1 million people, you'll get 1 million different ideas of what America is, won't you? If you say you're a person, what does that mean? You'll get 1 million different ideas of what a person is. Huh? How real is that? And if you say you're a person, aren't you limiting yourself? Huh? Yeah, because you're not what? You're not a tree, you're not a dog, you're not a cat, you're not a deva, you're not a devil, you're not, what? There's 1 million things you can, huh? Being a person is just a terribly small, little, limited identity. Now look, it's better to think I'm a person than to think I'm, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Christian, I'm a Jew, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm gay, I'm straight, all those little sub-identities that are there tucked away inside the person identity. There's tons of those. But when I get up to be, and it's better to think I'm a person when I'm relating to you because I can appreciate your problems, because as a person I have these problems. But what? It's setting me off against what? The rest of creation, isn't it? So the I, in the anatma, in the reflection, the eyes that reflects in the subtle body, thinks it's a person, feels as if it's bound by the objects, and suffers the afflictions of birth and death. Now, birth and death here, we're not going to define as physical birth and physical death. Okay? Birth and death, generally in spiritual literature, is a symbol of change. It's just a dramatic symbol of change. That's all. Like in the Bhagavad Gita, you see that the poet Vyasa has presented this really dramatic situation where it's a life and death situation. But look, that has a universal applicability, not because we're confronted with life and death situations like Arjuna was every 5 minutes. We're not confronted with like those kind of situations every 5 minutes. We're confronted with what? Constant change. The presence of an experience or an object and the destruction of an experience or an object. The birth or the life of an object means a feeling, a thought, experience, a person, blah, 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 any object. And the what? The death of that object as it what? Dissolves or disappears back into the unconscious. So we're constantly dealing with life and death. Every minute. Isn't it? A thought is born, a thought lives, and a thought dies. The rat thought was born, the rat thought lives, and the rat thought, now it's dying. Because I've got all my plans, and well, he didn't show up last night. He must have felt, uh-oh. Or maybe those awful things we made him eat, got him to eat, maybe those actually killed him. We don't know. But soon, in a couple of days, you won't hear my rat story. A new story will be born. A new story will become my life. And and a few days later, that story will disappear too. And the same person that what? Was there before the rat, during the rat, and after the rat, right? That person is what? Who I am. Not this experiencing entity that's what? Living and dying according to the experiences that he or she is having. In other words, ignorance or bondage is what? Bondage to experience. Believing that the experience that is presently happening needs to be more or better or different from what it is. My experience has got to be acceptable to me all the time. That's freedom. Freedom means I'm okay with any experience that's happening to me at any time. If I'm not okay with experience X, Y, or Z, I'm not free. Because the experience is defining me. The tail is wagging the dog. That's not good. The dog has got to wag the tail. Just as a silkworm traps itself in its cocoon, the jiva thinks it is a decaying body, its decaying body is real, and ignorantly nourishes, anoints, and protects it. Huh? Ooh, that's painful, isn't it? Huh? I love these rishis. They were not PC. They were not trying to make us happy and pander to our silly notions of ourselves. They were just telling it like it is. Huh? So look at this. It's a silkworm, huh? He wraps himself up, traps himself in that cocoon. In all of these thoughts and feelings we have about our body, it doesn't mean the physical body here, the physical body and the subtle body. The Sukshma Sharira and the Stula Sharira, both those bodies, we get wrapped up in. Every little thought ties us down. You know the image of Gulliver? Huh? You know the myth of Gulliver? He's this great big giant, and he goes to this land of the Lilliputans. The Lilliputans are tiny little people. He's this great big giant. And eventually, those Lilliputans capture him and tie him down. And they tie him down with tiny little strings. Huh? Now any one string, any 10 thin strings he could break. But millions of little strings he can't break. And he's flat on his back, this great giant with all his power, and he's what? He's been reduced to a totally helpless, powerless individual by just millions of little tiny strings. Little tiny attachments and desires and fears binding me down, holding me tight in this little cocoon of what? Meanness, I-ness, fearness, desireness. Huh? You get tighter and tighter and tighter. Your body gets tight. Everything gets tight. Right? And ignorance, you add more and more strings. You think, oh, let's get rid of this, and then you add another on top of that, thinking you're getting rid of the first one. Band-aids you keep putting on. Eventually, how do you end up? You nourish your ignorance. Here, he's saying, this is the jiva. When it doesn't know that it's awareness. Anoints it and protects it. Okay, how does bondage happen? Take a break, and we'll take 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll, how to bondage happen, take the next step. Verse 40, how does bondage happen? Maya's predominant power, Thomas, covers beginningless, effulgent, non-dual awareness as an eclipse covers the sun. This Maya has two powers. It has the power Avarana Shakti and Vikshepa Shakti. Shakti means energy or power. It has the power to conceal, to hide things, and it has the power to project. This is the whole psychology of human beings. It's here in Maya. The essence of human psychology is contained in this idea of Maya. We deny things and we project. Projection and denial. This is the essence of our psychology. And we do this denial and this projection because what? We don't know that we're awareness. That's what ignorance does. It hides our nature, our wholeness and completeness from ourselves, from us. And because of that, we project our beliefs and opinions and desires and the fears on the world. That becomes our creation, our projection. And then we live in this cocoon. As he said, it's a cocoon of projections. And we wrap ourselves up, tie ourselves up very tightly in these beliefs, mostly beliefs and opinions. That's why you really have to be very mature about Vedanta, because as you can see, we just ruthlessly attack all these spiritual notions. The worst kinds of beliefs are spiritual beliefs. No, honestly, you know why? Because you think they're superior to other people's, the ordinary worldly beliefs. That's why. You actually think these spiritual notions are better. You think they're the truth. And there's always a little bit of the truth in all of these notions. A little bit. But it's not the truth. And you take those notions to be the truth. Like this notion, we had a notion earlier today, an idea earlier today, which was like, be here now. Hey, millions of people, because of Eckhart Tolle, before it was Baba Ram Dass, he was called Be Here Now. Now, Eckhart called it the power of now. What he actually meant by the power of now, I'm not sure. But I do know how people took that teaching. And they took that teaching as if the now was something that you could get into, was something you could achieve. How many millions of people believe that? That the problem is I'm not in the now, and therefore I need to get in the now. And if I can get into the now, I'll be free and happy. I'll be in the flow. I mean, it sounds good, doesn't it? When you first hear it, if you don't know anything, that sounds reasonable. I'm always suffering thinking about the future. I'm always caught up in the past, regretting about the past. I'm continually agitated about things that have happened or worried about what's going to happen. If I could only get right here, present and right now, I'd be okay, because when you actually are present and now, you do feel okay. But you don't realize that when you feel okay, it's not because you're present and now, it's because you're just yourself. But you believe that it's because the self is now, the self is only now, and you believe that you have arrived at this thing called the now. But you were always the now. You were always present. See? So these are the kind of projections or beliefs we're talking about that wrap you up. These are projections. That comes from the rajas aspect of the gunas. There are three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. And the veiling power and the projecting power, the veiling power comes from tamas, and the what? Projecting power comes from rajas. Because I don't see reality, I project this notion that the reality is time-bound. But the scripture says the reality is not in time. The self is always out of time, so there's no way that you're going to get in the now. You could not achieve the now because you are the now. Now is a very bad word for the self. If Eckhart, for example, is referring to awareness as the now, maybe that's what he means. I don't know. Maybe that. Does anybody know?
Yes.
He is.
Yes.
So when he's saying that now, he means awareness. Is that right?
Yes.
I think that's right. Others have said that.
Like nowness.
Nowness. Okay. What does that mean? Well, if you say nowness, what about I-ness? How does I-ness relate to now-ness? See, now-ness is an experiential, time-bound word. In this spiritual world, there's two languages operating. Two languages. The language of experience and the language of identity. The language of experience is the language of yoga. Yoga's okay, no problem with yoga if you understand what yoga can do and what it can't do. But it's about experience. And that's the main language of the spiritual world. 95% of the spiritual world is a language of what? Experience. And this nowness is an experiential term. Because it implies it a bad word for awareness. Why? Because it implies time. So ostensibly, it makes some sense. Ostensibly means on the surface. On the surface, it seems reasonable to talk about awareness as now. Because experientially, when you are at one with yourself, you are now. And you think it's a state of experience that you've gotten into. And this language of experience is an easy sell. You know, we're immediately seduced by experiential language. Why? Because our whole life has been nothing but experience. Hasn't it? That's all we are. Everything I think I am is nothing but the sum total of all my experiences. And here I am working day and night to improve my experience, which means what? I take myself to be an experiencing entity. So when I enter into the spiritual world, what do I'm really ripe for this experiential language. I'm about to write a blog for the Dwight Academy on this language of experience and this language of hyperbole. And so when they say that awareness is the now, we don't think. But there's an implied meaning in the word now. There's the ostensible meaning, the obvious meaning, and the implied meaning is that somehow awareness is in time. But awareness is always free of time. So why not just call it chit, consciousness? Why not call it chaitanyam? Chaitanyam means chaitanyam shashvatam shantam vyomatitam niranjanam. Why not just give a name that refers to the thing itself? The Vedanta is a language of knowledge. It's not a language of experience. It's very few. In the spiritual world, there's almost none of that. A language of identity. It's important to hear this because when you're going to be reading, if you're going to read other things, after you've heard this teaching, I don't know how you can really read other things, but but if you do, be on alert for this. Watch for this experiential language and be able to understand the limitation of that language and what it implies. Because it always implies doership. It always implies doership. All those teachings imply that there's something you need to do to get enlightened. And we say the only thing you need to do is know that enlightenment is not obtainable through an action, through an experience. And then realize that you have an ignorance problem and not an experience problem, and that what? That the solution to an ignorance problem is never experience. Because you've had many epiphanies, but it hasn't set you free, isn't it? You've had many non-dual experiences, but have they set you free? No. The solution to ignorance is knowledge. in which case I need what? A means of knowledge. Ergo, the Shruti, the scripture. And the scripture, the scriptures of Vedanta, are couched in the language of identity. Tat tvam asi. You are that. Or I am that. Everybody knows that one, right? That's Maharaj. Nisargadatta. I am that. Now, look at that statement, I am that. Is that statement telling you to do anything? No. Absolutely not. It has no implied action. There is no action that's implied in that statement. Is there? So what use is that statement? What use is there? The only use in that statement is to understand what it means. Isn't it? In other words, the only purpose of those mantras in the Upanishads is to understand what they mean. They are not exhortations to action. They're not telling you do this or do that. Ramana said, he says, a guru, a person who tells you what to do is not a guru. The yogis are not gurus because they tell you do this. Do asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dhyana, dhyana, samadhi, right, blah, 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 all this sort of thing. Yoga's for doers. If you take yourself to be a doer, then please do yoga. Because they will tell you a million things to do. I had a very dear friend who was in yoga for many years, and it took her 4 years to get through the niyama stage. There's all these stages in yoga. And she kept failing the niyama tests. And because the yogi made her do all these weird things. She had to chew these sticks with her spit and then put them and make them grow in this thing. And it wouldn't grow. It showed that she wasn't pure enough yet. And she spent 4 years trying to chew these sticks to make them grow. Right? And after 4 years, she was told that the rishis are not happy with you because you're not getting through the niyama stage. She hadn't even got to asana, pranayama, dharana, dhyana. So she hadn't even got to the samadhi stages yet. She's still on stage 1 or stage 2. 4 years in that stage, and eventually she thought, something's wrong here. And then she met another yogi, another Vedanti, who told her, are you mad? Are you out of your mind? And she wakened up to the Vedanta. And now she's a realized person, but she spent 4 years believing, and she was very sincere. She spent all her money, she came from Switzerland, she did all these things. To what? Because she thought she had to go through all of these progressive stages to get to samadhi. And then it would be nirvikalpa, savikalpa, then nirvikalpa, then it would become permanent. Now once you get to the samadhis, then what do you have to do? That's not the end. You've got to stay in that samadhi, don't you? So what? There's still a doer there, isn't there? There's still a doer. I've got to maintain my state. You know how when you get in one of those high states, you know very well it's going. You know very well, but you hate it. You don't want it to go because it feels so good. That oneness, that love, that transcendence, that freedom, you want it to last. How can I maintain this state? And it's slipping away all the time. It's like making love, It's good, but it's slipping away all the time. It's going to end. And you want to maintain it. And so the doer's there trying to keep it. Never happens. Because experience is not under the control of the doer. Experience is what? Under the control of vasanas. Should have my other chart. I didn't get it on there. But the vasanas are Ishwara, the gunas. They're causing the experience to happen. It's not under the control of the doer. But in that yoga model, in that doing, in that action model, you believe that through your actions you can control experience. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, beautiful statement. He says, all beings follow their nature, what use is control? Means we're all programmed by Ishvara. We have our various natures. They're all programmed by Ishvara. The gunas are doing all the action. Ishvara is causing all the action to happen. What use is it to try to control what happens to you? What's the point? That's knowledge. So where did this start? With projections. The spiritual world is just full of a bunch of projections. And the reason it's so easy to get hooked by them is because there's a little bit of truth to them all. Huh? That's the problem. It's not that they're total ignorance. Huh? There's always a little bit of truth in there as well. And so you swallow the ignorance along with the truth. You're truth seekers. Oh, that sounds reasonable. So you grab that idea, but you get the ignorance that's hooked in with it. If you read Osho's teachings, they were beautiful teachings. Huh? So many people got so inspired by them and everything. But if you read them with a clear eye, there was tons of ignorance on. He was so clever. He just put all of his opinions and beliefs and ideas, he just wiggled those in there right next to the truth. And they'd be so tightly that you just swallow the whole pill. Well, Wood couldn't separate it out. The language of knowledge and language of experience all incestuously woven together there. This is why we need discrimination. And moksha, liberation, is defined as atma, anatma, vivekaha. Atma means the self, consciousness, awareness. And anatma means the objects appearing in it. And viveka means discriminating. It just means knowing what the self is and knowing what the objects are. Knowing the nature of the anatma and knowing the nature of the atma. And if you don't know that, then you're in bondage. Then the cause of what? Then you're in bondage. That superimposition of the atma and the anatma is causing us feeling of bondage. You feel like you're in this cocoon, you're stuck in these spiritual ideas. Yeah, but this power of ignorance, what does it do? Does it cover the sun? Now, when you got an eclipse, there was one recently. Did you see that eclipse recently?
Yeah, the night.
Was there no light in the sky? Huh? Was the sun actually obscured? No. That Maya, that shield, that moon that was between, or the earth that was between the sun and the moon, it didn't actually hide the sun, did it? You could still see the what? The radiance of the sun behind it. The light was still leaking out. And Maya's like that. Maya doesn't hide awareness completely. In the Upanishad it says it just covers a tiny amsa, a small little bit of awareness. There's this idea that awareness is like completely covered over by Maya. This is again an experiential notion. And we've got to dig through all these coverings, somehow physically dig through all these coverings to get it to reveal itself. In the Yoga Sutras, which is the basis of this experiential notion, it's the first sutra says, Atato, it says, now the study of yoga. It means if you're qualified now, you're ready for yoga. Then it says, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is the removal of the vrittis, the vasanas, the conditioning that's in the mind stuff. And then the third sutra says, and then the seer shines in all its glory. Then the self is revealed. So it's made to look like what? The self is only going to shine when you got rid of all your stuff. Doesn't it? And so people think, well, I've got to get rid of all my vasanas to get enlightened. See that? So now I've got to work really, 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 really hard because I got lots of vasanas. I got to do lots of yoga and get rid of them. Huh? The problem is I get a huge vasana for getting rid of vasanas. That's what I get. Huh? And what do I do all along? What's even worse than a vasana for getting rid of vasanas? What's worse than that? Reinforcing my belief in myself as a doer. In other words, thinking that I'm getting rid of the doer and the vasanas by doing. I'm actually what? Reinforcing my belief in myself as a doer by practicing these yogas for what? For the purposes of the moksha. Now, what's the truth in that statement? What's the truth in that notion of Chitta Vritti Nirodha? The truth is this, and it's a good truth, and you should understand it. What's the upside of that teaching? The upside is that what's preventing me from understanding myself, what's preventing me from assimilating the knowledge of the teaching, are the agitations that are appearing in my mind at any time. And therefore, I should be what? Willing to remove those agitations so that what? Knowledge can take place. And the way that I remove those agitations is with yoga. So yoga is very, very, very valuable. Because what? If you don't do your yoga, if you don't purify yourself, if you don't live a sattvic life, if you don't, then what? The assimilation of this knowledge will not take place. But the belief that if I do these things I'm going to get enlightened is not true. Because yoga, you can get something that you don't already have. Or you can remove something that you do have with yoga. Yoga means to gain, to obtain, to get. So you can get something you don't have with yoga, you can get rid of something that you do have with yoga, but you can't, what, with yoga, get what you already got. And what Vedanta says, very clear, is what? That you are the self already. So you're not going to get that by action, but by action you're going to get antakarna shuddhi. Antakarna shuddhi means a pure mind. A mind that's capable of understanding, a mind that's capable of realizing. So you see there? There's a beauty, there's a truth in that teaching, and there's also a false, there's ignorance also in that teaching. And we need to take the bits that are useful and discard the bits that are not useful. Use yoga for the right purpose, and it's a beautiful thing. Use it for the wrong purpose, and it's nothing but frustration. Just a total frustration. Trying to experience myself when I'm already myself. Huh? So these are just some of the projections that come when you're tamasic, i.e. when your self is covered. And those projections don't cover you. They just obscure the clear light of the sun, just like this what? This eclipse obscures the pure light of awareness. It makes it fuzzy and indistinct and hazy, but it doesn't actually hide it. We get rid of the ignorance, and then the light is revealed as it is. And only knowledge gets rid of ignorance, not action. That's the point. That's all Vedanta say. Awareness is free of impurities, but when it is eclipsed by ignorance, the jiva takes the body to be the self. Body means the subtle body too. It is then afflicted with the strong power of rajas. Here comes rajas, right? Afflicted with a strong power of rajas and subject to binding desire, anger, and so forth. When you don't see that you're whole and complete, you feel incomplete. When you feel incomplete, you don't like it. It does not feel good to feel incomplete. So, what happens then? You want to be complete. You get a desire to complete yourself. And because you don't see yourself as it is, because the self is hidden, it's behind you, you assume, it's an assumption, you assume incorrectly that the objects outside you are there to complete you. It's an honest mistake. It's an honest mistake. Don't get blamed. Don't blame yourself. Don't beat yourself up on account of this. Huh? Oh my God, why did I do that? That's awful. You didn't do it. Ignorance did it. Ignorance is to blame for this. You didn't do it. Everybody, do it. You wrongly assume that the objects outside can fulfill you. And an object is anything other than your own self. Remember the definition of object? We started up last week. An object is anything other than yourself. And we can lump all the objects into one category. And what's that? And experiences. You think experiences that you have are going to make you feel okay and heal you. We call that healing. They're going to heal this split between me and myself. The split isn't really there. I don't know that it isn't really there. It looks like a real split. I see those objects. I feel lonely. And I see you and I fall in love with you. I fall in love with you because I think that what? That love, that you can complete me. And what happens when I fall in love with you? I feel complete. Feels good. I feel fine. Huh? Don't I? But I got a new problem, don't I? I believe that the joy is in the object. I think that you're giving me the happiness. Because when you go away, what happens to my happiness? It's got legs. It goes away too, doesn't it? Huh? My happiness has legs, so it goes away. See how that works? And now what? Now I'm caught up or bound into an object. Even the idea that the object might leave me sends me into panic. I suddenly get depressed. Who would I be without this lovely person that I love so much? Sends me into a panic. I can't imagine life without that object. See the bondage, how it's come now. And where did the bondage start? From the non-appreciation, the non-apprehension of myself as complete, limitless, non-dual, actionless, unborn, ordinary awareness. Where it started. Just didn't know that I was okay. Assumed, therefore, that the objects were there to complete me. Got myself connected to the object. That's called the bondage. Bondage is a bandhika, a connection. I got connected, tied to the object. Now I need you. I want you. I need you. And what's the problem? This is all in samsara. And what's the problem with samsara? It's always changing. Isn't it? It's always changing. So what? The subject is changing. Me, I'm changing. When I get you, I change, don't I? And the object is changing. Why is the object changing? Because it's in a whole field, and it's changing at the behest of the field. And I'm changing at the behest of the field. In other words, all my past is impacting on me, and all my relationships with all the other objects in the field are impacting upon me. And how likely is it that what the connection between this ever-changing object and this ever-changing object is going to get permanent? How likely is that going to be? There are moments when there's a connection, and then the connection's broken. Then there's a reconnection, then it's broken. Then there's a reconnection, and then it's broken. So a relationship is nothing but what? Trying to manage this constantly changing field of energy. I've got to see that you're happy. Or off you go. My happiness goes off with leg, And that's sometimes a job, because I can't satisfy your likes and dislikes, try as I might. Because your likes and dislikes, where are they born of? Your ignorance of your nature. And it's coming 24/7. And you're expecting me to solve your problem for you. And I'm expecting you to solve my problem for me. Doesn't work. It works fits and starts on and off. Bits and pieces. It's not satisfying. See, we're just trying to find out what the cause is, what the source. This is inquiry. This is the teaching. The joy is not in the objects. This is the number one fundamental beginning teaching of all Vedanta. If we can't get past this teaching, if we can't understand this, you're just not going to make any progress. Because you'll keep believing that there's some object out there that can do the job for you. You'll just keep believing. Money, status, power, security, fame, pleasure, you name it, I don't know. There's a billion things that people can think of that they think will make them happy. And an inquiry is just an analysis of experience. That's all inquiry is. It's not a teaching. It's not a teaching. There's some learning to be had when I analyze experience. Experience teaches us something, but it's not a teaching. It's just analysis. That's all the rishis did. They just looked into it deeply. A rishi means a seer. They just stopped looking at at the superficial notion, and they dug deep into the psyche. And they analyzed experience from the point of view of awareness, not from the point of view of the experiencing entity. Then we go down and look at it from the point of view of the experiencing entity, and experience doesn't look all that good from the point of view of the experiencing entity, does it? Because it doesn't deliver what it purports to deliver. It purports to deliver happiness, but it delivers what? Temporary happiness. And temporary happiness is worse than no happiness. Why? Because you keep believing that you can get it a little more. It gives you a taste. It whets your taste. It whets your appetite for a little more. You keep, maybe I got it wrong this time. That's what you think. If I just get the right object, it'll be fine. It'll be different. Or if I just do things a little differently, then the happiness will come. So, what comes when I don't know? I want things. I desire. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moda. It says in Bhagavad Gita. When I don't know who I am, here's where all my emotional problems start. Don't go blaming mom and pop. Okay? If you still got issues with your mother and your father, you really don't belong here. Because we don't believe that mom and pop are the problem. We do not accept that your mother and your father and the federal government and religion and the society and all those bugaboos that are meant to, you're meant to blame for your problem are the problem. Those are not the problem. What's the problem? I'm ignorant of my nature. That's the problem. And when I got desire, then I get a whole series of emotional problems. What do you get after you got desire? Kama krodha. Krodha means anger. I wanted a peaceful night. I wanted to sleep through the night. This stupid rat came into my environment and I got pissed off. Why? Because I wanted a peaceful night's sleep. It's a reasonable desire, isn't it? But does reality care? Ishwara's looking after the rat. Huh? Ishwara made the rat. Ishwara put hunger in the rat. Rats are just always hungry. So Ishwara said, go into that house there. There's lots of juicy things sitting on the counter. And have your dinner inside there. And in comes the rat, and away goes my peace of mind, and up comes anger. Okay, now I got anger. Some people are in a state of perpetual anger. Have you noticed that? You just talk to them, and they're okay, but you need to be very careful. You need to just like tiptoe around them, because it's like a minefield. If you say the wrong thing in slightly the wrong way, boom, they just explode. Why? Because their desires have not been met. There's a huge resentment, a pool of anger there that's just sitting there waiting to leap out, looking for an opportunity to dump itself, on the world. Because of what? Because their desires have not been met. See where that starts? And when you get too angry, what happens? You get deluded. Your mind gets so tamasic, so dull, you can't think clearly. Rajas produces tamas, and tamas produces rajas. When you're too angry, you're just like this, and your mind gets exhausted. It just gets exhausted, and you become dull. You become stupid, and then you start making mistakes because you can't see what's going on. You're in a state of ignorance and denial, and then you start making the wrong choices. And that what? That creates more conflict, which is more rajas, which produces more disappointment, which is tamas, and so forth and so on. And you get locked in this cycle of desire and anger, and the mind what? Loses its equanimity, loses its shanti. And inquiry stops. And Krishna says at the end of that, where he describes this chain reaction of emotions, he says, and the soul perishes. It means what? It doesn't mean you die physically. It means you die spiritually, because you no longer have enough vitality to keep what? Alert and discriminating. The sattva guna goes out of your mind. And you can no longer discriminate properly. And you're screwed if you can't discriminate properly. Because freedom is discrimination. Freedom is discrimination. Atma anatma vivekaha. You see how this is all tied? So don't blame mom and pop, blame ignorance. Look at your desires. Analyze your desires. We're saying this. Don't just accept these desires that you have as commands. They feel like commands, don't they? It feels like I'm supposed to do this. It feels like I'm being told to do this. And I should do it. It feels right, you see. It feels right. And it's just, it may feel right, but just step back and have a look and think it through. The sadhana here, the spiritual practice, is thinking these things through. This is practical stuff. There's nothing mystical about Vedanta. There's nothing spiritual about Vedanta. That's all spiritual, mystical, all of that's baloney. This is like every day I've got these desires and these fears. I've got a practical problem here. My desires and my fears are practical. They're obstructing my, right, or enhancing or instructing. They can enhance you. Fears can be good. Desires can be good. They can be bad or not. They can both be bad. They can both be good. I just need to step back and look at them and think about them. And think it through. What am I going to gain by this? By pursuing an object, what will I gain? According to your goal. In our case, what is our goal? Moksha. We're inquirers. We want freedom. So that's our goal. So in light of my goal, I analyze my desires. Are those things that I want actually going to deliver to me what it is that I really want, or not? And you know, these teachings, these ideas are just meant to guide your thinking. I can't do it for you. I did it for me. You know, I sat there every day with Swamiji. You know, from 4 in the morning till 10 at night, listening to Vedanta. I was with him all the time. Every satsang, wherever he went, I went. Around the world twice I went. And he was a Vedanta computer. It just never stopped. And I just listened, and thought about it over and over until my brain became a Vedanta brain. I got fed up with my own thinking. And I realized, hey, the way these rishis think is the way to solve the problem. The way I think is making problems. The way these guys think, is solving problems. Let's just slot out Jim's stuff and put in Rishi's stuff here and think from that point of view and see if it doesn't work. And sure enough, it works like anything. Because it's based upon the nature of reality. These teachings are based upon how things actually are. They're not they're not hyping anything here. They're not trying to sell you anything, like religion. Religion's always trying to sell you something. They always want you, to do something, to get something. We're not saying that. We're saying you understand that you want this, fair enough. Now we're telling you, let's just analyze reality carefully. Let's just look at things as they really are. And then see if you don't have what you want already. All we're doing is like taking the piss out of ignorance here. That's all. Ignorance is taking us for a ride, and we're taking the piss out of it. How does bondage happen? Verse 42. These two powers are responsible for bondage and make the jiva assume that the body is, got a mistake here, is the self. The body means the subtle body is the self. Got a mistake. Oh, yo. What? Let's see here. And, okay, we did a little too much on the questions now. We got to sort out this question. Do you guys like the questions and answer sessions?
Yes.
Some say no, some say yes. Okay, the ones that say no don't have to come. No, the questions and answers are good, but you see, as we get more into this, your questions get more sophisticated, because many questions are answered every day. That's what Vedanta does. It removes your doubts little by little. But we will do the questions and answers. And let me think about it tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll try to get here at like 15 after 9, and we'll do it then. Then maybe we'll just have to have a separate session in the afternoon for an hour and a half. That may work. I have to check my own living situation and my own, because I love you guys, but I'm not, gonna like run myself into the ground enlightening you. I'm gonna have a good time. Also, okay. I'm not a saint, in case you hadn't noticed. I'm not a saint.
The rat notice.
That's it. So, okay. So what sustains it? Ignorance is the seed of the tree of samsara. And this is just a beautiful little verse that's taken from one of the Bhagavad Gita, which is taken from an Upanishad. I think it's Chandogya. Isn't that in this tree of samsara in the Chandogya Upanishad, Swami? Huh?
Chandogya Upanishad.
Yeah, Chandogya Upanishad. Yes. This imagery comes from this Upanishad. It's repeated in the 15th chapter of the Gita. Urdhva Mulamadashakam Ashwatam Prahuravyayam Chandam Siyasya Parnani Yastam Vedasya Vedavita. Like that. It tells in the Gita. And it comes from it. He's just repeated it here. He's just taken it. He said, it's too hard to work out all the correspondences. You can get the idea just basically by reading it, and we'll just read it. And then tomorrow we'll start on the next topic, which is how to get free. And so it says here, ignorance is the seed of the tree of samsara. We covered this. The sense of I in the physical body is the sprout. Manifold desires, the foliage. Actions, the sap. The body, the trunk. The pranas, the branches. The organs of action and perception, the twigs. The sense objects and the flowers of the fruits the fruits. Let's see, how is it? The sense objects, the flowers, and the fruits are the various joys and sorrows born of the many actions which the jiva, like a bird sitting on the branch, eats and enjoys. Isn't that beautiful? Look at in this one here. You want to give me a hand with this, Carlos? Let's take this off. There we go. This is the Urdhva Mula means what? The roots are up in heaven. Heaven means the self. It means the whole Maya, the whole samsara is rooted in consciousness. And it's an upside down tree. It's rooted here, and then this whole projection are the trunk and the branches and the leaves and so forth. And sitting on one of the branches is this little jiva person, this little doer, eating and enjoying, num 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 num, nibbling away at those fruits, looking for what? Trying to get a little happiness here. What a beautiful vision, huh? You see the poetry there? You see the sense of humor there that these guys had? I mean, this is a great science, but they weren't stuffy old academics. The guys who wrote this, they had a sense of humor. They had a sense of art and poetry and beauty in it. The verse, listen to that. Urdhva Mula Madashakam Ashwatam Prahuravyayam Chandam Siyasya Parnani Yastam Vedasa Vedavita. Beautiful poetry, all laid out. Oh, lovely. And the meaning. And then how every word unfolded. Swamiji used to unfold every word. Tick, 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 tick. Each word. One, it could take a whole hour, 2 hours on one verse. Swami Dayanandaji. He would take one little verse and spend 2 or 3 hours just expanding every word out. And always bringing every idea back to the source, back to the center, over and over and over again. Just continually thinking, continually meditating, continually contemplating on the relationship between yourself and the objects appearing in you. What is ignorance? What is bondage? Who am I? What is the body? What is the linga? Well, so forth and so on. So tomorrow we'll go at it again. We'll do till Saturday. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, 4 more. And then I'll take a break on Sunday. Then we'll pick up again. And this week, probably when I get it sorted out, we'll have a question and answers either in the morning or an hour early, or maybe we'll have a special one in the afternoon for an hour and a half.